Mellody, I am so excited to get the privilege to talk to you. As somebody who works and is so wildly passionate about financial literacy, you have always been someone that I've looked up to and genuinely been so in awe of. So when I got the opportunity from UN Women Australia to interview you, I, at nearly 39 weeks pregnant, said, yes, absolutely, like this is going to have to make it work. So welcome. Thank you for spending so much time with me. When I talk to people like you, I really want to dive a little bit deeper. And something that I talk about a lot when it comes to financial literacy is a money story. And it's what you think and feel and act and behave like when it comes to money. And I would love to know what you're willing to share about yours. Like, is this something, obviously you are wildly successful in the philanthropic space and we look at you and go, wow, but everyone has a bit of a story around money. Everyone has a background. Can you tell us a little bit about yours before we jump into the juicy questions?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your baby. I'm very excited for you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that enthusiastic opening. And yes, financial literacy is one of my passions. I talk about being an evangelist when it comes to money. I think it's something that's incredibly important for our world globally, is really to understand money so that we can make the right decisions that ultimately will allow us to have a better life. And I come from this interest and perspective based upon my money story, which you said everyone has one, no matter how much you have. You can have a lot or have a little, and there's probably a story in there. Well, mine was growing up in Chicago, the youngest of 6 kids. My mom was a single mom. My siblings were a couple of decades older than me. So they constantly reminded me that I was not planned. And while I was growing up, we had a lot of financial difficulty. We used to get evicted, our phone would get disconnected, lights turned off, all of these things that were incredibly traumatizing at times. And as a result of that, I really had a passion and really was focused on understanding money. So I don't think it's an accident that I work in the investment business, because I had a desperate need to understand money. It wasn't about having a lot. It was about whatever I had, making the right decisions. And that need and understanding, or desire to understand, really did translate into the purpose that I feel like I ultimately have, which is to teach others so they aren't as stressed and as traumatized as at times I felt I was, as I worried about where we were going to live and things like that when I was a child.
I'm so excited that you were willing to share that. This year we're talking about counting her in. How did you go from that circumstance to going, you know what, I really need to understand the investment space. I need to understand how to look after me so that I always have a full cup so that I can give to so many other people. At what point did you first become really interested in investing, and what did those steps look like?
It was a miracle. So let me start off with that. I became a summer intern at my firm, where I still work today, Ariel Investments, when I was 19 years old, between my sophomore and junior year at Princeton University. I met the founder of Ariel early. I was 17 when I met him. And I just, on a whim, asked if I could be a summer intern. As I've already suggested to you, I didn't grow up in a home where we had much money, nor where money was discussed. And so when I went to Ariel, it was like a whole world opened up to me. And that's what I learned about the stock market, investing, having the opportunity for money to work for you. Just I was just amazed and bowled over by the opportunity. And that's when my eyes were open to the possibilities. And that's when I knew that I would stay in the investment business after graduating from college. I worked really hard as a summer intern and was invited to come back after I graduated. And I did. And I never left. They say the average American has 11 jobs in their lifetime. I've only had one. I'm the only person in my graduating class who's had the same work phone number for going on 33 years. Now, it also makes sense because I told you about the financial instability that I had as a child. So I do crave stability. That's job stability, housing stability, all of those things. I'm someone who likes to be rooted because of the disruptions that I had early on.
I feel that in my bones. Like, I feel like everyone I talk to who had a tumultuous upbringing, we all crave this level of stability because we want to be able to provide it for past us. I often think about this concept of like looking back on baby us and just going, wow, I'm this person that she needed. Do you often go, all right, well, I cannot believe I'm here, but also I feel like you don't get enough credit. You say, I'm so lucky, I had this job, I met this person, but it took tenacity to go, you know what, I'm 17. I would like to work here. I would like to do that. For women that are following in your footsteps, like you have not just joined, Ariel as an intern. You did that when you were 19, but now you're co-CEO. Did you ever see that happening? And what advice would you have for women who, maybe don't have the confidence yet to just ask for the opportunity?
I'm pulling up something that I have on my phone because I want to read it to you because it so profoundly affected me when I saw it that I think it speaks to your question. And you never know where you might see something that will lead to some form of inspiration. But, this idea of, well, how do I look at my life now? How do I think about myself? Um, you know, it's a miracle. There's so much that the universe had to conspire to create this opportunity for me. But at the same time, I want you to know I worked so hard. I really knew that I didn't have a lot of options. And if I wanted to lead a different life, I was going to have to grab that life and really make it happen. And so it's one of those things where I can tell you, you can decide you're going to be at the effect of the world or you're going to make things happen. And I don't know how, as such a young person, I recognized I had no other options. I read this quote and I loved it so much. I passed it on to some of my friends. It said, some people are just meant to win. Life will delay them. Life will confuse them, but they simply never stop. Eventually, exponential opportunities will collide with their experience. Then, when they do succeed, it's like it happened overnight. But there were many dark nights, and deep down, despite all the stress, pain, and insecurity, they knew. They always knew.
I adore that so much. It reminds me of my favorite book. It is by a woman called Angela Duckworth, and you've probably heard of this.
Grit.
It's called Grit, right?
I love grit.
And that quote really resonates with the theory of that book. And it's not about being the smartest or the best. It's not about, having every opportunity presented to you on a silver platter. It's about those who are willing to work hard and those who are willing to, put themselves out there. And when you fall down, you don't just accept that's the outcome. You go, no, I was here to win. I was here to be great, and I'm going to get up and try again. And I think that that's such a beautiful theme to run through this conversation because like what you've got is grit, right? You've worked hard, and I love that you back yourself in saying, no, like it is a miracle, but I worked so hard to get here because that's what it takes, right? To get out of a situation you no longer want to be in, you have to have grit. How can we as women, start looking at investing and building wealth and not be overwhelmed by it, but more be inspired by it and say, I might be starting with my first $5, but $5 compounds. I feel like sometimes we always say, I'll invest when I have more of an income. I'll invest when I'm more financially secure. I'll invest when I get out of debt or, I'm not in this relationship. Like, how do we get out of that mindset and into this mindset of like, no, we're here to win. We are women who can take on the world.
I love that question. Arianna Huffington has this quote that I think is so great. She turned the whole idea of the financial crisis in America on its head. And during that time, they talked about banks being too big to fail, right? And the government having to come in and save them because they were too big to fail. Arianna talks about making your goals too small to fail. That you make them so small, it's impossible to fail, because what we often do as people, we have these lofty goals that are impossible. So how do you eat an elephant, as we say in America, one bite at a time? You take a little bit and, little bit builds on the next little bit. And so when I think about saving, investing, understanding money, I say start small. Everyone thinks you have to be grandiose or rich. I don't believe that. And I say start small because you're just learning. Who's going to jump head first into something they don't understand with their savings?